He's running for Supreme Court. Good evening and welcome to the Landis regular scheduled board meeting here tonight on Monday, March the 7th. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone for being here in person, whether you're viewing online. If you would, please stand up. We will have a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like to make an amendment to the agenda. We have two items that we are going to amend. Under item number 7, under the ordinance number, it will be ZMA-2022-3-14, not 7. And then I think we have one more. 11A will be an amendment to consider alternate member for the Central Carolina of Government, the COG. We need to place a...
So moved, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold 1 second, please,
Hold on,
Mayor.
we didn't do this. We didn't do this, right?
What is it?
Ordinance number 7, the 20,000. We haven't talked about it. Are we going to try?
We need to add it.
You need to add it?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Sorry.
All right, so then we will make this 11B. And this would be to consider approval of ARPA grant project ordinance update number 7. And Ms. Seaford will present that to us when we come around to that item. All right. At this time, do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Mayor and Board, I move that we accept the agenda as amended with 11A, 11B, and also the typographical error for the ordinance of the Landis Development Ordinance, ZMA 2022-03414.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. At this time, we will move to citizen comments. These will be regular citizen comments. We do allot 3 minutes to speak.
Beth Mason.
You can hand it. You can pass it around if you don't. If that would be okay with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Beth Mason, and I am a resident of the town of Landis. I also work as the shop manager for a local community bike center in Salisbury called the Pedal Factory, and we serve all of Rowan County. Our mission is making bikes and cycling accessible for people of all ages, regardless of their ability to pay, with programs such as our Earn a Bike program, in which anyone can volunteer 6 to 8 hours of their time at our shop and leave with a fully functioning refurbished bicycle, lock, lights, and a helmet. We're an official 501c3 nonprofit organization, so we depend on donations, grants, and sponsorships for our yearly funding. If you haven't already heard of the Pedal Factory, I hope to pique your interest here tonight. We at the Pedal Factory believe in the transformative power of riding bicycles. First and foremost are the economic savings compared to owning and maintaining cars and buying gas, which, I don't know if you noticed, just topped $4.19 a gallon at the local Speedway gas stations today. The health benefits of cycling are obvious: weight loss, blood pressure loss, that type of thing. Plus, pedaling is so far easier on the joints than running or even walking. The emotional and personal well-being aspects of biking are outstanding too. I like to call it two-wheel therapy. You get a better frame of mind and outlook in just a few minutes of pedaling down any given street. You guys may have seen me out and about pedaling on my bike. I'm a regular out there. We believe cycling just makes good practical sense, far more than people realize, so we're committed to sharing our love of bicycles with everyone who crosses our threshold. Since our inception in 2015, we have sponsored 607 Erna bikes and had 1,850 bikes donated to us for repair and refurbishment. We've held summer bike camps for the last several summers for kids of all ages, and we have 6 weeks scheduled for this summer beginning in May. Our other good works include the fact that we have recycled over 13,000 pounds of metal and over 4,000 pounds of rubber that didn't go to the landfill. Most importantly to all of you, we have installed 7 public bicycle work stands and tool stations in Rowan County, the closest to here being the station we set up at the local Y beside the library here. We also teach bike skills and bicycle safety at local elementary and middle schools, and we hold team building events with local companies such as Daimler and Food Lion. But in order for us to continue to do our community work, I have come tonight to ask all of you to vote as a group for the town of Landis to sponsor the Pedal Factory with a donation or a sponsorship, please. Was that the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I do have
We
a,
sent these around. I have more in case you need to see them.
okay. And does that have the sponsorship information on it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And when do you need to know by?
By April the 4th, please.
April 4th. Okay. We're actually meeting April 4th, but maybe we can,
Oh, okay, it can be later than that. Then.
Okay.
That's fine. I had no idea. Okay, let's say April the 15th.
okay.
We're at thepedalfactory.org if you need to see more information or if I piqued your interest. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right.
Miss Nadine Cherry.
Nadine Cherry, 410 West Garden Street. In the meeting I had with Mayor Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Ashley Stewart, and Landis manager, Landis manager Diane Seifert last week, in my opinion, there was really no positive outcome. I can tell you they have come up with a non-discrimination policy because of receiving coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, or CSLFRF, which I received this past Friday. I have for the last number of years told this board and former boards they are not ADA compliant. Under the APRA considerations, there are 5 federal statutes and federal regulations prohibiting discrimination. These include, but are not limited to, the following: Title 6 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, activities receiving federal financial assistance; the Fair Housing Act, Title 7 and 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Age Discrimination Act of 1975, which prohibit discrimination on the basis of age within programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability under programs, activities, and services provided or made available by state and local governments or instrumentalities or agencies thereto. I hope this is a wake-up call to all board members, town manager, police department, and finally, the ADA coordinator. And lastly, if I have any time left, I yield the rest of my time to Gary Martin.
The policy that was just referenced, the non-discrimination policy, is in the consent agenda 9E.
Thank you, Chase.
Gary Martin.
Gary Martin, 301 South Central. Tuesday night, March the 2nd, I was sitting at home around 7:30. Officer Hill and two other men, which I don't know who they were, come to my house and observed for the third time, 3 times, that I am coming through some kind of system through the fire department. And I asked them, I said, 4 and 5 times, what am I coming through? I am a ham operator. I can talk on any frequency they are to talk. I'm a general. I can talk anywhere at any time. But the system is, what am I coming through? I keep asking them. This goes back to about 5 or 6 years ago when another officer I beat in court because there's nothing they can do. The FCC does not monitor CB radios anymore. It is turned over to your local police department. But what is the problem? What am I coming through? Please tell me. I will do what I got to do to try to solve this problem. But when I keep asking, what am I coming through? No response. So I asked them. I said, I'll tell you what, you don't have a search warrant, do you? Then get out of my house. Point blank. I'm tired of the harassment. I am tired of the stress. I've been emotional stressed out since Tuesday. I've got a lawyer, and I hate to think that he ain't listening right now, because I want to know the answers. What am I coming through? I think as a citizen of this town, I have the right to know. What am I monitoring? Just like I said, a baby monitor. I can prove to you a mobile radio, a CB that you can buy from any store, Wilco, Walmart, Amazon. I can hook it up and promise you I'll tear it out of frame. You'll hear my voice. But the question is, what? What am I tearing? Please tell me. I want to know so I can certify what I need to do with my equipment. I've done everything in the world. I put filters. I've done everything in the world. They're welcome to come and check my house anytime they want to. I don't care. I don't have anything illegal. I can take 5 watt video, which the minimum on is 4 watts. Anything video swings, it doesn't matter. But the FCC regulations is a 4 watt key. No more than a 4 watts. It can swing 100 watts. There's nothing I can do about that. Nothing.
All right, thank you for your comments.
That's all we have for public comments.
My suggestion for you, Mr. Gary Wayne, would be to contact Manager Seaford or Public Safety Director Zach Lachetti. Thank you. All right, at this time, we will move to adopt the meeting minutes from 2/8 for the ARPA meeting and the monthly meeting of 2/14 of 2022. Do I have a motion?
Mayor and Board, I move we adopt the meetings from those 2 meetings previously stated.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. At this time, we will move to item number 7. If we can ask Mr. Flo if he would please come up to the
We need to open the hearing.
if you will please come up, and at this time,
Mayor and Board, I move we consider opening for the public legislative hearing for ordinance amending the LDO ordinance number ZMA-2022-03-14.
I second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, members of the public. I want to give you a brief overview, and then I will present in just a moment a recommendation from the planning board, unless our distinguished acting chair would like to assist with that tonight. The application before you tonight and the ordinance number, forgive me for the confusion on that, the ordinance number does end with 14 rather than 7 because that ordinance had wings and was moving through planning board process, had been published and everything before your meeting date was changed. You'll notice that in the draft there is a effective date as of today, but the ordinance number itself is still the 3-14. All right, in the details, this is a familiar item from many of you. This has to do with the Atlantic American Properties zoning map amendment that you considered last fall. It's the same exact property. This would be to change it, however, a little differently. Instead of to an MU1 with all of the normal MU1, mixed use 1, rights and privileges, standards and specifications, this would be what's called a conditional zoning. Conditional zoning can reduce the privileges. It can't relax the standards, but it can reduce the privileges. So what you have before you tonight, if you would take a look at the ordinance, that ordinance number 2022-03-14-1, there's a map on the second page, and the third page, it's called Attachment B. B is in baseball. You will see the conditions that are limiting on the mixed use 1. This list that comes from Table 8.1 of the Landis Development Ordinance lists only the permissions that would be allowable under that version of the MU1. It would not include the grocery stores or the apartments or the townhomes, things of that nature that were the concern of many that spoke at the hearing last fall. Now, any development, as would be allowed under this MU1CZ, we'll call it, that stands for Mixed Use 1 Conditional Zoning, would still have to meet all of the applicable standards of our LDO. So that is a little bit of a background on what the application is and what you'll see there. Now, at the meeting in February, I have to get my months straight. At the meeting in February, the planning board took this matter up before it, and they, after much discussion and hearing information on this matter, they did recommend in the affirmative unanimously this time. The first time last fall it was a split vote. This time they recommended unanimously to support a recommendation for the zoning change. In that draft, you've got a draft statement of consistency and a draft statement of reasonableness that go along with the rezoning, and that is the language that was recommended by the planning board. I think I've covered everything. Our chairman is no longer with us now, unfortunately, Dr. Fight. We do have Ryan Nelms, our vice chair, with us tonight. Is there anything that you want to add to my comments?
Yes, sir.
I think I keep trying to get him involved. He'll be on front and center stage tomorrow night at the planning board meeting. All right. Are there any questions about what I've presented in either my comments or the planning board's recommendation from the board? All right. Thank you. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. At this time, do we have any public comments?
David Nelson.
Hi, Mayor, members of the board. My name is David Nelson. I represent Lennar Carolinas, and they are the petitioner here. If you will recall, back in the fall when we were before you, we showed a site. We had a site plan, and Mr. Flo will always affirm that the site plan really has nothing to do with the zoning. So we haven't changed what it was that we intended to do with this property at the Irish Creek Golf Club, is to develop single-family detached homes. And so we came back with this proposal for the conditional zoning that basically allows only single-family detached residential, and the things that we believed, and I think the planning board agreed, are the items within the categories within the zoning ordinance that would go along with a single-family detached residential community, such as a golf course or swimming pools and things of that nature. So that's the other things that are on that exhibit. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but it's really just as simple as that. We didn't originally recognize that we could do a conditional district, and once we figured that out, then we came back with this proposal.
All right. Are there any questions at this time for Mr. Nelson?
Are y'all willing to use the 75-foot lots, or what? Did that change, or?
We're willing to do what's within the MU1. So there are some lots that are that size, but there are some that are smaller than that in our plan in the future.
Townhomes?
No, ma'am. Townhomes, we left it in there when we had the community meeting. There was some folks who spoke up and weren't in favor of that, and we
Okay, because
we removed.
yeah, I had to leave early, and so I was like,
Yep, we removed that.
Okay.
We did.
Okay. Are there any other questions at this time for Mr. Nelson?
So just one point of confirmation on the conditional zoning. Requisite dwelling, single-family detached, which is why you say no townhomes.
That's correct.
Right.
And we took the language that's in that exhibit, and that was one of the questions that we had at the planning board. Though that's exactly the language that's in the chart in the zoning ordinance. That's why it's sort of written backwards. For lack of a
It's
better-
possible I may have another question for you after additional citizen comments.
Okay, that's fine.
Or comments by the public.
Anything else?
I think we're good.
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who is our next comment?
Sean Tooley.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sean Tooley with Land Design. On behalf of Lennar, I'm just here to answer any questions anyone has. So if anything pops up technically for the site plan, I'm happy to answer those.
Okay. I don't know. Chase, is there somebody else on that list?
No one else on the list.
Okay.
So, at this time, Mr. Overcash.
Well, hold on one
Oh,
second.
we gotta close the hearing.
Well, hold on. Before we close, are there any more questions for either of the two gentlemen representing Lennar at this time?
All right, I hate to sound stupid or ignorant, but I just want to make sure, as far as the road situation, is that involved with this, as far as making sure that those roads can handle this traffic? I mean, I know that's out in the county.
No, ma'am, it's actually, the traffic analysis will have to be done. It fronts on DOT streets that are out in the county. The development's fully inside the town. All new streets will be built to the standards that are in our ordinance. There's not any change in that. This doesn't condition or alter any of those. The traffic impact analysis that DOT will require will establish any acceleration, deceleration, lane configurations, things of that nature based on the loading at any of the different entrances that may come off of Cannon Farm Road or otherwise.
Okay.
This would just be this really means that the proposal before you would change the density for all practical purposes. That's the significant aspect here. It changes from single-family residential 2 units per acre to the mixed-use 1, which is about 7 units per acre. But I don't think that's 7 units in every acre. There's lots of open space. There's lots of other things. So I don't think they're proposing that as much as they're proposing just smaller lots and that sort of thing.
Mr. Flowen, just to confirm, tonight's only addressing the rezoning request and not standards and specifications, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
However, those standards and specifications had been read or considered from the developer standpoint?
We've had some discussions in the past with the developer about the standards and specifications. Yes, sir.
Reason why I bring that up, just on a personal note, as one individual of the governing board, is this properly reflecting what we, initially considered as our future land use map that became effective July 1st of last year. So a very recent change, and something that's somewhat fresh that planning board worked on, subsequently us as the governing board approved. Is this following our vision of what we want for that area?
The land use plan, if I may address that question, Alderman Stewart, the land use plan called for neighborhood. It didn't really get to the level of density of that particular part of land. It did call for it to be neighborhood, not commercial or industrial or something else like that. So the real issue in the zoning is the decision about the dimensional standards, really is what it boils down to. The dimensional standards being lot area, lot width, setbacks, things of that nature. That's really the biggest difference between the different residential classifications. And by scaling back, as the applicant pointed out, by scaling back and foregoing the other types of residential, the dwellings, that's why they're all in the Ds, they're all different types of dwellings, as well as the non-residential components like retail and things of that nature. They've essentially brought it back into keeping with the neighborhood aspect. The big difference is just the dimensions. The SFR2 that's out there today is a 72-foot lot width dimension, and I believe it's about 17,500 or so, 17,600 or so square foot lot. The MU1 CZ will allow for it to be a smaller lot and a smaller lot width. But all the roads, open space, other configurations still apply. Okay?
But this is just zoning.
This is just the zoning designation on the land. Yes, ma'am.
Any more questions, board, before we move on? We're good? All right. At this time, I will ask.
Madam Mayor, I would like to disclose that I am employed by the property owner who authorized the request for this zoning change. Therefore, I request to be recused from this vote.
So we probably need to close the hearing.
Yeah, let me close the hearing first. All right, do I have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Overcash, if you could please repeat that.
I said I would like to disclose that I am employed by the property owner who authorized a request for this zoning change. Therefore, I request to be recused from the vote.
All right.
Leave the room.
Yes, thank you. Is there a motion to recuse Alderman Overcash?
So moved. I make a motion that we accept the recusal of Alderman Overcash.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, at this time, we will he can come back in now and sit down. He just can't be in here for that. Okay. All right, do I have a motion to consider action to adopt ordinance ZMA-2022-03-014?
So moved. Mayor, I move that we consider an action to adopt ordinance ZMA 2022-0314.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right,
None
I'll
from
go
me at this
around the
time.
room. Alderman Sells?
I vote yay.
All right. Mr. Stewart?
I vote yes.
Mr. Coyer?
Nay.
All right. Majority passes 2-1. Motion passes.
So Mr. Overcash can now return to his seat.
Yes. All right. At this time we will move to number 8, and we will now have a public hearing for Kannapolis Annexation Agreement. I'm just letting them leave. Okay, do I have a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, at this time, we will ask Mr. Flo back to the microphone stand.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, members of the public. It's nice to see you all this evening. This subject that we're going to be talking about now grew out originally of conversations regarding the project that you just voted on. It had to do with all of that land on our, I'll call it, southwestern flank that was owned by Atlantic American Properties, the David Murdoch Enterprises, and some lying in Kannapolis and some lying in Landis. The subject of having our outer edges, our outer boundaries now starting to feel some pressure to grow led Manager Seaford and I to have some conversation with the staff at the city of Kannapolis about maybe looking beyond that project and talking about growth areas in general. In the absence of any kind of an agreement, what happens is the closer jurisdiction to a piece of property is the one that may annex that piece of property if you're within a certain distance. So it's measured purely based on how straight crows fly and how far they fly when they fly straight, which makes absolutely no rational sense when it comes to service delivery such as police, fire, water, sewer, things of that nature that rely on street networks and service delivery boundaries and utilities and topography and water pressures and infrastructure in the ground things. So the general statutes in North Carolina allow for these things called an annexation agreement. An annexation agreement essentially allows the two municipalities to enter into an agreement and establish rational growth boundaries that are mutually acceptable. There is a limit on how long those stay. It's about 20 years, or it is specifically 20 years. There are constraints on pulling out of one. You have to give a long notice, things of that nature. So they're not permanent and forever, but they do at least allow enough of a planning horizon, if you will, to be able to make some decisions. There are a set of maps with yours tonight, and I'm going to try to walk you through a couple of these. If you notice in your agenda, there's, of course, the agreement itself, but I think the most important thing to lead off with is probably the areas that are the subject of such an agreement. And so if you turn through your packet, the first one that you'll come to is Kannapolis Future Growth Area A. And these are largely in order of the file names from the large USB key file that they were printed from. So that's why they start with Kannapolis and not Landis. Otherwise, I would have put Landis first. But I couldn't rearrange the alphabet. So Kannapolis Future Growth Area Section A, if you can see that on the map, is largely the areas that are just beyond Lake Kannapolis towards Enochville. Comes up across Cannon Farm Road and all the way up to NC 153 north of Greenfield Road. And that's what is shown in that particular map. And I'm just going to walk you through each of these first. There, just for your information, there is a written boundary description that goes with each one of those, so it's actually specified in writing, not just an image. The second map is Kannapolis Future Growth Area Section B, and that map you need to turn sideways. It covers the area out and across I-85. Okay, it's a pretty big area. You'll see that they've got already the purple near the top of that map is the area around that Old Beatty's Ford Road interchange that they annexed a couple of years ago. So that's that second one. Then we kind of move to a couple of infill areas. Infill areas are those little donut holes that either Landis or Kannapolis touch. In most of these cases, we completely surround those little donut holes. And in Growth Area C, Kannapolis Growth Area C, they refer to them as Features 1 and 2. And those two areas are spelled out. One is down off of South Chapel and comes up over to Main Street. And it kind of makes sense for them in that area as we walk through these and discussed each one of them. Then there are the Landis growth areas, and that's the ones I really want to get to. Let me get through the written descriptions. You see what, I used to actually write these descriptions. I got tennis elbow from writing these descriptions one year when we did it with the old-fashioned way, with pencils. So now we have Landis Future Growth Area, Section D. D is in David. And you'll see that there are 6 of those infill areas in Landis. Some of them are entirely surrounded by Landis, and some of them are surrounded by a combination of Landis and Kannapolis. Then you'll find the Landis Future Growth Area E, which is to our southeast, if you will. Comes up, it straddles Old Beatty's Ford Road out to a point on the right. It would end at Boston. On the left, it goes to the creek right past Boston. And I don't remember the creek name, forgive me for that. But it goes down to that creek. But when you ride that area and you look at that area, what you'll find is we actually come out, I think, a lot better. Our property is more buildable property and less topographically challenged property. So I feel really good about that one. The last area, Landis Future Growth Area F, is on our west side, and it's centered along NC 153. It reaches all the way from Cannon Farm Road up and along that common boundary with Kannapolis' future growth area, crosses 153, and then comes all the way over and touches the China Grove town limits to the north, and then the Landis town limits on that side. Now, what this means is that any future growth and development in those areas, let's say it's one of our Landis areas, that seeks to have water or sewer, there would be no issue now about whether they were closer to Landis or closer to China Grove or closer to Kannapolis. It would be automatically in our areas as it pertains to the Kannapolis agreement. And so I want to take this opportunity to mention that we have introduced the subject with the town of China Grove to reach a similar type of understanding to the northern sides of these future growth areas as well. But that is not before you tonight. It's simply the agreement with the city of Kannapolis, which would be a 20-year agreement to us stay in our area and them stay in their area and not get into battles over these territories. Then we can plan our utilities, our water, and our sewer, and the accompanying rolling services like solid waste and police and fire accordingly. Any questions about the overview?
I don't think it's a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, you say it's a 20-year agreement,
Yes, ma'am.
and what happens at the end of the 20 year?
It's all goes back to crows flying unless we renew a new agreement, unless we've filled it all up. I would anticipate that we will probably revisit the issue at that point in time. Unless y'all get rid of me by then. 20 years, that's not very long.
I won't be here.
Well, now, Tony, don't count yourself out yet.
You probably the only one here.
You might be the only one left. They might pick us off one by one. And
I think
leave you.
Alderman Corrier's just got other plans at night. He's going fishing or something. That's what it is. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Do we have any comments?
No public comments.
No public
Mayor Board, I move we close the public hearing for the Kannapolis Annexation Agreement.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. At this time, we will consider action to adopt the Kannapolis Annexation Agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good job, guys. That's a great one. We will now move to number 9, which is the consent agenda.
Under your consent agenda this month, you have several items. We have a public safety update that requires no action. We have a change to the parking regulations for the town, and all that is doing is simply adding some newer areas of the Oaks of Landis streets that were not included in the first ordinance. We have an item to consider an ARPA micro purchase threshold. That is required because it's federal funding. With a federal funding, typically you would have to bid out anything over $10,000. You can increase that if your state has an ordinance that allows that. Our state does have a statute that provides for that opportunity, so we're asking for that, which basically moves it up to $30,000. Is that appropriate overview of that, Mr. Norwood? Okay. And considering an ARP grant project ordinance update number 6 resolution, that is a request to purchase a water and sewer camera and locator. We have a bid for $12,500 for that. Consider a non-discrimination policy. That is also required, and something that we obviously should have had long before now. This has given us an opportunity. Mr. Norwood has written a great policy for that. Also wanted to include for your information contracts with ME Design, which will be doing our web hosting, and Doxum, who will be providing printing for a new bill layout that our citizens will be able to see. And this upcoming bill, the March bill, will look very different than your prior bills, and I think you'll be very pleased. Also, a request to award a uniform contract for Public Works. It's been quite some time since we went out and to bid for our rental uniforms. We are requesting that you go with a company called Rental. They're $12,812.80 per year. That is not our lowest bid. Our lowest bid is $9,479.60, a difference of $3,333.20. The administration is recommending that we go with Rental because our Public Works folks feel that the quality is much better and that it meets their needs. We also believe that it will provide for an improved appearance of our folks in the field and give them a more professional look. So that's the items under the consent agenda this evening.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, at this time, we will move to 10.
Yes. Item number 10 is consider a request from the Department of Transportation to certify Ordinance 1079986 for a speed zone of 45 miles per hour between the town limit and US 29 on Old Beatty Ford Road. The DOT reached out to us and asked if we would go ahead and approve that ordinance, primarily because it's kind of making sure that we've covered all of our bases since we relocated the Old Beatty Ford interchange, and making sure that everything in there has been covered with an ordinance. So that it simply does that. It's already marked 45, but this would make it official at the state level.
Did we get anything back from the other one?
We got it back today.
Okay, so we'll move it.
So that'll
Bring it
be
for
on
April.
next month.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, do we have any discussion? All right, do I have a motion?
Mayor and Board, I move we consider ordinance 1079986 for the speed zone of 45 miles per hour between the town limit of US 29 and Old Beatty Ford Road.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we will move to 11.
Item number 11 is consider approval of 3 water and sewer grant resolutions. There are 3 different resolutions, and I'll go over each one of those. I think this is important because it starts to address some of the concerns that we heard on infrastructure from our citizens earlier this evening. So Chase and I met with Gary Flowers to discuss potential grant opportunities through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. We currently have 3 projects that are what are considered to be shovel-ready. And shovel-ready projects get priority in funding because they're ready to get started. A lot of the projects that we have with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, they're very detailed applications that Mr. Flowers helps us with, but they have to have a lot of detail in them. So to fill out those applications and make sure that we get top priority, it's easiest to start with those that are already shovel ready, which means we've already done the pre-work for these. The design's been completed and we're ready to go. The first one is to eliminate the 5th Street and Poplar Street lift station. And that will do just what it says. It's going to take those lift stations out and we're not going to need them anymore. The elimination of these stations will make our system more efficient and reduce maintenance costs. Project costs are currently estimated at $1.2 million. The second project is the Mount Moriah Church Road North Main Street waterline replacement, which will replace clay pipe that has long passed its useful life. The project is engineered and ready to go. It will be a good start to what is the ultimate goal of replacing all of this material throughout the system. The third project is the South Upright Street Basin Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. You have already approved this project, and it's gone through several iterations. It started out as a project that we got a loan approval for of up to $1,788,120. We did not believe that we could take on that amount of debt. So when Mr. Barefoot was here, we wanted to take advantage of being able to get funding. So we reduced that to $500,000, which would then enable us to get a match for $500,000 and do up to $1 million. However, with this grant opportunity here, it allows us to go back to the $1.7 million and request that it go from a loan to a grant status, so that basically we now are able to go back to expanding the scope of that project. That project is very important because what it does is it addresses our infiltration, which is what happens when we have pipes that are not holding together any longer, and when it rains, our stormwater is greatly increased into those pipes. So what happens is we are paying for treatment of sewer into those pipes, and we don't need to be. It's rainwater, but it's going into our sewer pipes, and then we're paying to process it. So if we can replace those pipes, it will make a significant difference in our cost each month for processing of our septic system. So the good news there is that plan is already ready to go, and we're just requesting that it be changed into a grant. So with these the adoption of these 3 resolutions, we will be ready to submit to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. As you know, there are significant funds available for infrastructure through both the state and federal government. We will continue to bring you opportunities as specific projects are identified and required pre-work is completed. At the current time, we want to capitalize on the opportunity to get started with these 3 projects totaling almost $4 million.
All right, at this time, is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Mayor and Board, I move we consider approval of the 3 water and sewer grant resolutions.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move to number 11A.
11A. We were approached by the COG during the last month to appoint an alternate for our COG representation. Everyone else has, for some reason, we missed appointing an alternate. And so we have Ms. Alderwoman Sells as our representative, and we just need an alternate.
Can you refresh my memory what are the dates and times of the COG meeting currently?
It's the Tuesdays. We're virtual right now.
Tuesdays?
I think Tuesdays.
I'd be available that day. I could serve as an alternate.
They're in the evenings.
You want?
It's up to you. Sure. I mean, I don't care. Whoever. Daryl? Would you be interested? No? Okay. Tony, would you be hauling water?
No telling.
All right.
I'll volunteer myself on Tuesdays. I don't have any municipal duties.
Do y'all not meet on Tuesdays? What day of the?
Katie, does the COG meeting happen in the evenings or during
It's
the?
in the evenings.
Okay.
It's like
Oh.
5. It starts at 5-ish.
The second Tuesday.
Planning board is second.
Right, correct.
And what is that? What is yours?
I'm gonna punt that to you, Mayor, because I need to reengage.
Okay. Sorry.
I need to
just,
reengage as the planning board liaison.
Yeah.
More, better than what I've done.
Well,
previously.
I mean,
So I'll punt that to you.
okay. Well, you'll have to make a recommendation for that.
Mayor and Board, I recommend that Mayor Smith serve as alternate to COG.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Okay,
I guess add me to an email list.
there you go.
All right. We will move to 11B.
11B is consider approving an ARPA grant ordinance number 7. And this, I am pleased to say, is all a result of some initiative from Mr. Norwood. He found this on his own, applied, and we have been awarded with an opportunity, but it cost us just a little bit of money. This request is actually to fund a position for a North Carolina Fellow through the LEAD program. And basically what this does is it takes a student that is in the Masters of Public Administration program and one of the university's 16 universities, if they offer an MPA program, and places them in a community from August of one year to June 30th of the following year. So for almost all of a fiscal year, I think they take the first month and go through orientation and what's expected. We set up, this is a professional position, not one that's just clerk or administrative in nature. We're expected to provide them with professional opportunities. Mr. Norwood has come up with a list of those, and we will be narrowing that down and sending it in this week to help them know exactly what we want to do. But we were selected out of many applications. We're one of the ones that got picked. So all of their expenses, their housing, their stipend, and anything else that they would need is covered by the university except for our portion. And that portion is based on our economic situation, and our cost for that would be $20,000. So we would basically get a professional with the last step of their master's program being completed for $20,000 for a year. I will also say that Mr. Norwood participated in this program, and that's how he ended up in Rocky Mount. So it's often an opportunity to meet a professional, try them out, and then if we have a position that would be available that they might want to join the team. Anything else you'd like to add, Chase?
I didn't participate in this specific program. It was a program of a similar nature from NC State. That how I ended up in Rocky Mount as part of my cohort. You had to participate in an in-service internship with a local municipality, and they placed me in Rocky Mount. So it's a similar structured program.
All right. At this time, is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Before we do a motion, give me a minute. I have a couple more paragraphs I'd like to read.
Okay.
What professional position would we have available if that worked out?
The question would be, what professional position do we not have available?
I don't know, that's why.
Well, we don't have a specific position, but we have a number of items that we put in our application that we would like for that person to do. Chase, do you have that?
So, as part of the application, you can list a number of potential job responsibilities that the fellow could perform over the course of the 12 months that they're here. And they're, as part of the program, if you would like to request an extension at the end of the first year, you can request a second year extension, which would cost an additional $20,000 at that time. The current proposed work scope is a full-time grant writer specifically for state grants, as these fellows are prohibited from applying for federal grants since the current funding for the program is already from federal grants. Item number 2 is a full-time policy analyst to perform a full audit of town policies and procedures to bring them up to modern standards and propose process improvements that would have a huge impact on town efficiency. As if I haven't given you enough policies. Item number 3 would be implementing a capital improvement program for the town. And a program manager for that, and we would have a professional come in to perform a sustainability assessment and implement improvement initiatives to increase town budget capacity for capital investments in the future. Item number 4 would be a regional or intergovernmental liaison to participate in the coordination of with other municipalities and counties in order to establish a network of neighboring jurisdictions to improve intergovernmental relations and increasing opportunities for regional collaboration. Item number 5 would be a records retention specialist. We have the town vault is nearly at capacity, and several office spaces are currently being used as temporary storage, including Public Works and our secondary police building. A full inventory of town records needs to be completed and a disposition program implemented to make more efficient use of available space and dispose of town records that are no longer lawfully required to be retained. A graduate with clerk experience would make a great project lead for this assignment, as current town staff is currently doing other things. Lastly, we need a surplus and property disposition system, and we currently don't have a clear program lead for it. The task is currently being shared between 3 town directors who already have time-consuming responsibilities, and this has resulted in a backlog of surplus property awaiting disposition. A graduate interested in a career in governmental purchasing and warehousing would gain experience as a full-time property manager for the town.
I see, said the blind man. You have a question?
No, that was good.
Okay.
That
Answered it all.
well, yeah, absolutely. And what I was reading before were your paragraphs that you just mentioned.
Chase is really just trying to grow his department.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, I'm down for it.
I say for cost share to get someone with, at the point of exiting with a postgraduate degree and a postgraduate program around public administration is kind of a no-brainer.
Yes, absolutely. So at this time, do I have a
And then,
motion?
Board, I move we consider approving the ARPA grant project ordinance update number 7.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Look at that. Moving right along. Finance report, Mr. Norwood.
So does Mr. Norwood just, I think, handed out the finance report? Do you have any highlights or?
The highlight of this particular month is that since we've received the January tax collections. January is the end of tax season. It's when taxes are due. So it's typically when we receive the largest amount of collections, and although there are small amounts of collections received after the fact, after that date, For the most part, as far as general fund revenue goes, we've seen the majority of what we're going to see. So this 87% that we've seen in property taxes and penalties and interest is in large part what we're working with for the remainder of the fiscal year, barring some marginal late payments. As far as local option sales tax, that's paid in arrears, so we'll still see that throughout the rest of the year, which is why it's still sitting at 52%. Our Powellville allocation turned out to be more than expected at 123%, which is very good. So we've got we received a little more funds toward our street programs and everything. As far as the water and electric funds, revenues continue to outpace expenditures across the board. So as long as this trend continues, we'll be in a good standing throughout the rest of the fiscal year.
Thank you so much. Any questions? All right, at this time, we will consider the manager's report.
So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes and read the manager's report to you this month. I hardly know where to start this evening. I think it would be remiss not to acknowledge the current state of our world. As we see the Ukrainians battle for survival every day, I hope that we will take time to reflect on how fortunate we are to live in the town of Landis, North Carolina, and be part of the United States. It is easy to get bogged down in all of the things around us that we want changed or with which we don't agree. The war in Ukraine, at the very least, should cause us to put in perspective what really matters: freedom, health, family, friends, and community. We saw community happen on Friday, March the 4th, as our firefighters and surrounding community engines came together to rescue someone from a house fire and bring that fire to an end. We continue to experience community as the Red Cross arrived to provide services for those impacted. Thank you to everyone involved that prevented a tragedy from being much worse. All of our departments are working hard to ensure our citizens receive the best service possible. We will be changing our utility bills this month. I am hopeful that everyone will like the new design and information that is provided. We are also targeting April to go live with our new website. Also get ready to spend some quality time outside at Lake Hoyer Wilderness Park. The new playground is complete, and we have started clearing to install the remaining disc golf holes. Our 2 new cabins will be complete and ready to rent by May. In the meantime, consider bringing your fishing pole and enjoying an afternoon on the bank of one of our lakes. Spring reminds us that hope can be seen in new life, new growth, and warm sunshine. As we experience all of these things, please also know that hope can be seen in the positive changes and hard work happening throughout the town of Landis. Thank you for all you are doing to keep our town moving forward. I am privileged to be a small part of that movement.
Thank you, ma'am. This time we will have board comments. Do I have anything from you, Mr. Overcash?
I was confronted Saturday night and I asked about, we was talking, and this person said he liked living in Landis, but he didn't like the high power bills and the taxes, and they went on and on and on. Is our power still a little cheaper than Duke?
Our power is very competitive with
Competitive.
Duke.
So if it's not cheaper, it's right there with them.
Yes, it is.
And our tax rate, we know, is way lower than anybody around.
So what I would encourage, again, to say to that person is when he receives his utility bill, it includes his water, his sewer, and his electric.
Stormwater and garbage.
Stormwater and garbage, as opposed to only being his power bill.
That's correct, yeah. That's all I got.
All right, Ms. Hales.
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Coyer?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
No comment.
All right, it's left to me. So at this time, I would like to just tell everybody that I appreciate you hanging with us since 5. If you're still around, if you come back and you're looking for the meetings, they are separate. So there will be 3 separate meetings for this date. So if you've watched this one and you thought you were hoping to get to see something else, please know that there are 2 other ones. If you go back and scroll up, you'll find those for the same date. We will start having car shows happening in April on Friday, the first Friday night of the month. They will be uptown. We will have Chick-fil-A at this next one. We also will have an Easter egg hunt on April the 9th out at Lake Coyer. If you have your grandchildren or your children or your neighbors that are your friends, we invite you to come out and enjoy that event. We do not welcome negative comments, so come and have fun. But if you don't want to have fun, don't come. So outside of that, I think at this time we're going to go into executive session. There will be no action taken at that meeting. That's it.
Mayor and Board, I move we go into executive session under State Statute 143, 318, 11-6.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.